Yo, what's good? New video. Boom. Blade Trinity. Is it really as bad as everyone says? Blade Trinity, though. Are y'all familiar with Blade, though? Are y'all? Are y'all familiar with Blade? You know what I'm saying? Blade the Vampire. You know what I'm saying? Are y'all familiar with the movies, though? Fuck, I just exited out of it by accident. Hold on. Oh, come the fuck on.
It's no secret that ending a trilogy is no easy task. In fact, most beloved trilogies out there share one common characteristic. The third movie is usually the worst one. Whether it's due to the franchise
honestly, I really fucked with the first one though, but my grandmother, who is native to Haiti and stuff like that, she loves these movies, of course.
Like ending something is
but
the
damn near any action movie she loves.
Now, for some, Blade Trinity is an acceptable conclusion to Wesley Snipes' turn as the Daywalker.
But I fuck with Blade.
But for others, the movie leaves a blade-shaped void in their Marvel headcanon. In either case, one thing is for sure: this movie has some significant highs.
Movie. It's funny because you never really think about it like that.
And some very significant lows.
Jesus Christ! Ryan Reynolds.
Today's episode proves to be interesting as we dive into the final installment of the Blade trilogy. A movie that's been loved by some, hated by many, forgotten by most, and sued by one person. A movie that was arguably made just so Ryan Reynolds could test his ideas for Wade Wilson 13 years before the release of Deadpool.
Oh, wow.
But how does this movie hold up against the epic spectacles of today's MCU? Let's find out in today's episode of Marvel Revisited.
Come on, Snipes. Why are you suing these people for, huh? Trying to get that bag.
Hey there, true believers. Today we have a series first as we're wrapping up our first trilogy in the Marvel Revisited time capsule with Blade Trinity. Now, this movie has had its share of criticism to be sure, but when it comes to comic book movies of this era, we can look forward to plenty more where that came from. When the announcement was made by New Line Cinema that Blade Trinity would be directed by David S. Goyer, who had wrote the previous two movies, and would of course star Wesley Snipes again as Blade, the movie seemed to be in good enough hands and fans had their expectations set on high. According to David S. Goyer, he reached out to the previous Blade directors, Stephen Norrington and Guillermo del Toro, to get advice on how to proceed with the film and end the Blade saga. And fun fact, del Toro was actually thanked for his design contribution in the movie's credits. Before cameras even started rolling, Ryan Reynolds was being considered for a role in the film along with a planned spin-off movie. Some of that did come to fruition, of course, as we do see
behind the scenes just be all that green
Ryan Reynolds in this movie, and he basically plays a prototype Wade Wilson, but no spin-off ever came from his performance.
We had him!
The movie also stars Jessica Biel, who was actually not the studio's first choice. Originally, New Line wanted Ashley Scott for the movie, but she was beat out by Biel shortly before filming began. We also get an amazing supporting cast in Chris Christopherson, Parker Posey,
it was sad as fuck when he got shot up though. That nigga died tragically.
And Triple H.
Triple H, he was a horrible actor.
Time to play the game!
Goyer said he wasn't sure about putting Triple H in his movie, but after seeing his
made the wrong choice.
And hearing his comedic talents, Goyer wrote some additional scenes for him to not only be in the movie, but in the movie even more.
He's a horrible actor.
Didn't work for everyone.
Your kids. You're ready to roll with this.
Apparently, Wesley Snipes was so unhappy with the finished version of the script that he would constantly refuse to shoot scenes and force Goyer to do reshoots with a stand-in. I'm telling you guys, there is all kinds of juicy controversies coursing through the veins of this production. I would highly recommend you watch our Joe Blow original video, What the F Happened to Blade Trinity, to get your hands on the full story.
This is awkward.
Now, if you're ready, then so am I. So grab your darkest sunglasses and of course drop a like on this video and subscribe for the best in movie content. And let's hit play on Blade Trinity. The The movie opens with some high-tech vampires in a remote desert in Syria as they search for the tomb of Dracula, the first vampire, and also the key to the next evolutional step in vampirism. They find the Prince of Darkness himself and bring his body back to their headquarters, and now it is time to catch up with Blade.
What
Blade's
CGI
introduction scene is exactly what
what
viewers would hope
movie
for.
CGI
A dark and
is
grimy
underrated?
cityscape with
Transformers.
Blade and Whistler hunting down vampires left and
That
right.
show was
We also
fucking
get a pretty
ahead of its
visceral
time,
car
for real.
chase and of
I have no
course
idea
a
why that popped
wonderful
into my
techno
head.
soundtrack to instantly take you back to the feel of the previous movies. One thing that must be mentioned whenever we're discussing Blade Trinity is the instantly
this show was
recognizable
also a fucking
soundtrack.
Fast and Furious
All three
movie?
of these movies have had albums that came with their own acclaim, and
They
it
had
is
albums?
definitely
The fuck is this,
well-deserved.
Big Time
So
Rush?
Blade finishes the hunt by shooting down what he thinks is just
Like my
another
jokes?
night-crawling bloodsucker, but unfortunately...
Not a vampire, dumb shit!
Ooh, that's
Dumb
right. Blade
shit!
gets tricked by the underground society of vampires and is now being hunted by the federal government as a wanted murderer. This, to me, is the most interesting concept introduced in this movie. I love the idea of a vigilante whose
Boy, they
victims
was
turn
really
into
hunting for
ash,
his
leaving
ass.
no evidence behind, but
And
then
they
being
caught him,
set
too.
up to spear down a human
I'm
in front
spoiling
of
the
cops and
fuck
cameras.
out of it. I'm
Now
not
that
gonna
is
lie. For
something
anybody
write
that
home
wants to
about.
watch this
Blade
movie, you
retreats
might as
back
well
to him
leave
in
right
Whistler's
now.
hideout, where we get some much needed
For
Blade
the
and
YouTube
Whistler
people who is
time
gonna be
to
watching
remind
this
us
video,
just
I am
how
terribly
strong
sorry.
their
Spoiler.
father and son bond really is.
I see you alone, surrounded by enemies, and it breaks my heart.
When the FBI locates Blade and Whistler, the pair have only seconds to destroy the evidence of their operation and attempt to flee. Now, I don't know what it is about this franchise feeling the need to kill Whistler every time we see him in a movie, but the heartbreak never lets up, guys. It's real, every single time.
That shit hit
Whistler
hard.
sacrifices himself for Blade, but Blade does not escape. And so much for the cool idea of having Blade in FBI custody, because Blade isn't captive very long before we're introduced to Abby, played by Jessica Biel, and Hannibal King, played by Ryan Reynolds.
This is supposed to be a rescue!
From the start, Reynolds is playing a sarcastic, smart-mouthed quip machine serial killer who's got tactical skills that rival anything we've seen in this franchise so far. Does any of that sound like Deadpool to you? Me
Literally
too.
a pre-Deadpool before Deadpool.
Fake laugh, hiding real pain.
In fact, Ryan Reynolds also provides some voice narration at the beginning and end of this movie, which, listening to it now, it is impossible not to just hear the voice of Wade Wilson.
In the movies, Dracula wears a cape, but everybody knows the movies are full of shit.
Abby and Hannibal are able to free Blade and give him a dose of his serum so he can regain strength, and the three of them battle their way out of the government agency they're being held in.
Forgot my sword.
So from here on out, it's not just a Blade movie,
That works.
but it's a Blade and Night Stalkers movie.
Sounds like rejects from a Saturday morning cartoon.
We were gonna go with the Care Bears, but that was taken.
Now, while I can appreciate the concept of utilizing some solid comic book characters to add some balance to the stoic and silent Blade, in my opinion, this is where the movie becomes the most disappointing. See, I like the idea of Blade being captured by the FBI and being forced to cooperate with them in order to clear his own name and defeat the bad guys. There's plenty of interesting ways you could introduce the Night Stalkers into that plot line, but instead Blade is freed immediately, and the entire middle section of this movie is just explaining the new characters that we get and having Blade adjust to working with yet another team. I'm not saying it's all bad though. In fact, I loved the cast here, and David Goyer did showcase their talents pretty well in this part of the movie.
I have a question about that, Hedges. Have you ever been laid?
Many times.
It's clear that there was a cool and fun action movie idea in here somewhere, but I find that there was just too many spinning plates and too many characters to juggle at this point in the movie, and it really suffers in the scenes that don't feature Blade slinging bullets and swashbuckling around. We do learn that Abby is Whistler's long-lost daughter, and Hannibal is an ex-vampire who had been cured by Abby. And the team is rounded out by Patton Oswalt as Hedges, the tech expert for the Night Stalkers, as well as Natasha Lyonne as Summerfield. This group of misfit vampire hunters aim to help Blade in destroying Dracula, who, by the way, is definitely not a huge part of this movie.
Dracula's only one of the names he's gone by.
At the end.
The Babylonians worshipped him as Dagon,
Barely
and now
on
they call him
screen.
Drake.
Speaking of Dracula, maybe the biggest downfall that this film has is Dominic Purcell as Dracula, or I guess Drake as he's known in this movie. While Purcell has seen success in TV roles such as Prison Break and The Flash, this performance feels absolutely underdone but overdone at the exact same time. while borrowing some of Dracula's lore from Tomb of Dracula, which was Blade's first comic appearance, and I do really appreciate seeing that in the movie. The shape-shifting son of the devil himself was played as a boring, motiveless, hot topic-obsessed cult leader. Ugh.
What? You want to kiss me, pretty boy?
Parker Posey plays Danica, a vampire leader with intentions to use Dracula's blood to enhance her species of vampire and eliminate all of their weaknesses. Kind of like the plot of the first movie, and kind of like the plot of the second movie.
I must have heard hundreds of you rodents make the same claim. Each one of them have tasted the end of my sword.
We also get acquainted with Danica's crew, including
Each one of
Jarko,
them
played
had
by
tasted
Triple
the end
H.
of my sword.
He's honestly not doing his best acting in this movie.
Horrible
but I don't
actor,
care.
I'm
It's
telling
good to
you,
see
bro.
him
I'm
kick
not,
some ass for a
yo,
while.
not standing down from that.
This film spends a lot of time with the Night Stalkers and specifically the Trinity, Blade, Abby, and Hannibal. While I wish I could say I enjoy the time dedicated to this team and their dynamic, I actually find it to be some of the more boring and forgettable content within this movie. The pacing of the movie also struggles as it starts off with action and suspense for the first act, only to really drag through the second act and attempt to still keep us engaged for the third act.
My friends are going to kill you.
Most of the issues with the film, I think, are due to studio involvement and just having too many people with too many differing opinions on what this film should be. By the final act of this movie, Blade and Abby are gearing up to infiltrate Vampire HQ
Was up
and
in there
rescue
whooping
Hannibal,
ass.
who had been
Hold on.
kidnapped
My
by
son
the
Blade was like
Bloodsuckers,
this.
and then they proceed to take out an entire building full of vampires, familiars, and...
Goddamn vampire Pomeranian?
Yeah.
At this point in the movie's 2-hour runtime, all I want to see is Blade sword fighting and flipping off of walls while a killer techno soundtrack plays. And in that, this movie does deliver. Blade finally faces off against Drake in a really intense sword fight, which takes Blade and Drake to their absolute limits. The sword fight is honestly pretty entertaining because of the speed and fast camera movement, and it's also nice to see Wesley Snipes getting to do some stunt work. I mean, it's never not awesome. You know what I mean? And just when you think Hot Topic Dracula got the best of Blade, Abby comes in to save the day. Kind of. It's clear in this scene that the studio really wanted Blade to be the one to defeat Dracula, because Abby shoots the Dracula killing serum through an arrow at hundreds of miles an hour right at Dracula, but he senses it and catches it without any effort. But then Blade just picks up the arrow and stabs him in the stomach with it, which he could somehow not sense was coming, even though it was happening right in front of him. I don't know. I don't f***ing know. The police show up right as the vampires and Drake are dying, leaving behind nothing but piles of
Just had to
ash
show you
as
that real
evidence.
quick. My
The
skills.
police find what they think is Blade's body, only to find out moments before they slice into the body for the autopsy that it is in fact the dead corpse of Dracula, who had shapeshifted into Blade at the last minute. And this definitely does not track with the terms and logic that this movie sets up, but it's better than Blade actually being dead, right? We get a final shot of Blade doing a wheelie on his motorcycle while Ryan Reynolds narrates that Blade is still out there and ready for whatever comes next. Oh yeah, and there's also a post-credit scene which technically adds exactly nothing to this movie. It's literally just a silent clip of Blade driving, and that's it. Blade Trinity was released on December 4th, 2004, and while it did open fairly strong with $52 million in its opening weekend, it ultimately failed to gross as much as Blade 2.
Didn't know this was a popularity contest.
The film was considered a success, however, as it ended its box office lifetime with $132 million on just a $65 million budget. The film has received generally negative reviews from critics and audiences, and currently holds a 25% on the tomato meter, if you care about that sort of thing. Wesley Snipes also filed a lawsuit against the studio and the director about his salary and screen time. Snipes himself would later be sued by his own talent agency for not paying them. How ironic.
Like I care.
Years later, Goyer would comment about the film saying, quote, "I don't think anyone involved in that film had a good experience on that film. I certainly didn't. I don't think anyone involved with that film is happy with the results. It was a very tortured production." Of course, this would cause New Line Cinema to cancel the planned Hannibal and Abigail spin-off, which would have been a film following the Night Stalkers. Personally, I would love to see a Night Stalkers movie, but I'm glad the one that was planned for this universe was ultimately scrapped. And while Ryan Reynolds may have been a bit disappointed with the cancellation of his movie, he would shortly after find another chance to play a wisecracking superhero with his performance as Wade Wilson in X-Men Origins Wolverine. A movie that I will no doubt have to revisit one of these days, and by this point, you all should know just how excited I am to watch it.
And that's basically turning a frown upside down.
Blade Trinity was an interesting ride. I found myself really enjoying the introduction back into this world for the first half hour, but then became very bored and slightly disappointed throughout the rest of the movie. While it is indeed a mixed bag for me, I still found plenty of things to appreciate within this film. I can't in any way say it's a bad movie, and of course, some people out there find it to be a very good movie. Have you seen it lately? What did you think of it? Comment below. Of course, we're also getting closer and closer to our long-awaited MCU Blade outing starring Mahershala Ali, a film that I've heard is having its own issues with production. Are Blade movies just cursed or what? What's going on here?
Probably. The last
We've
time
got
that I've seen any one of those movies, bro, I was a
to
little
cover
ass
here
kid.
on the show, so as
But I really
always,
do
be
hope
sure to
that the
like,
new
subscribe,
rebooted Blade
and make sure you
that
tune in
Marvel
next
is gonna
time
be
for
putting
Marvel
out. I hope that's
Revisited.
fine, and I
We'll
do
see
plan
you
on
again
watching it.
soon.
See you again soon, man. Thank you very much. All right.